A lot of people ask me for this list, and so I'm going to give it to you. This is the 5 worst main events in WrestleMania history, according to me. So, we're going to do the 5th worst. We're going to start with the 5th worst and move our way down to my opinion, of the worst. This is a little bit tough for me because I think there's really 10 matches that are just not very good. There's a lot of matches that aren't very good, but the 5th worst match to me in WrestleMania history is The Miz versus John Cena. I wasn't a John Cena fan, really, and I wasn't much of a Miz fan. I thought The Miz got a really good entrance for this WrestleMania, and the match was all right, but I never really cared. I was more focused in on, I hope something crazy happens at the end of this because I'm bored. And something crazy does happen at the end. There's a count out, and then The Rock comes down and continues the match and takes, basically The Miz wins and sets up the next year's WrestleMania, which actually I thought was kind of interesting in a way, but it still has to be one of the worst WrestleMania's main events that I can remember. I just remember not caring. Not caring is a big thing for me. Even if the matches didn't go so well or weren't the best, sometimes they redeem themselves, or they have something redeeming about them. I don't think that this match had much redeeming about it. Going into the 4th worst WrestleMania main event of all time, as far as Joe Cronin here is concerned, I would have to say Undertaker versus Roman Reigns is number 4 of the worst match all time for the main event, because first of all, it was the main event, and nobody really, I don't like Roman Reigns. Nobody really liked Roman Reigns for the most part, except the new casual marks that love him. And The Undertaker is The Undertaker. He was starting to get older here, and the match was just very long. It was a very long match. There was a few botches. There was a couple of okay moments, but there was just a lot of botches. And, had The Undertaker really retired, it might have been a better story. But since The Undertaker didn't even really retire, the moment at the end is kind of ruined as well, where he takes off all the stuff and leaves it in the ring. That's the only memorable part about the match, and now even that part is sort of tarnished. So the match really is bad. There was a couple little botches that were just weird. The Undertaker didn't look like The Undertaker. I didn't care about Roman Reigns at all. So Undertaker and Roman Reigns is number 4 on my list. Number 3 on my list is The Rock versus Cena 2. I really couldn't have cared about this at all. It just felt like Cena was going to get his win back, and it really just, there was stuff in the match that happened that didn't make it good. I never liked Cena much at all. The Rock, was, I was never a big Rock fan as far as his matches anyway, but he was always exciting and the electrifying stuff and all that sort of thing. Yeah, he always had that. So, I think The Rock did his best work with Mick Foley and Stone Cold, probably. And, his stuff with Cena, wasn't a real big fan of that. So I put that at the 3rd worst WWE main event at WrestleMania ever. 2nd worst for me is Triple H versus Randy Orton from WrestleMania 25, I think it was. That was the WrestleMania where Undertaker and Shawn Michaels stole the show. And it just felt like garbage afterwards. I mean, with Undertaker and Shawn Michaels basically wrestling a wrestling match, you would have thought that there would have been some kind of crazy stipulation for Orton and Triple H, and there wasn't. And there was a little bit of interest in that match because of how they really built Orton up as this bad guy heel. And it was okay, but the match is so forgettable. I honestly forget that match even happened. I constantly forget that match happened. It's just so, I don't ever want to see it again. Much like many of these matches that I'm mentioning right now, I never want to see any of these matches again, and I'm dead serious. Now, before we get to number 1, let me give you some honorable mentions here. I know a lot of people are going to bring up Sid versus The Undertaker at WrestleMania 13. And while I agree, it wasn't the best thing. It wasn't the best match. As a kid, I was shocked, that was the main event. I couldn't believe that was the main event. because I wasn't really a fan of Sid, and I liked The Undertaker, but the two big men in there it wasn't exciting to me at the time. But, they had Bret Hart coming out being a baby, and, he had flipped heel, and Shawn Michaels was on commentary. So, I gave it some points for the theatrics, plus The Undertaker winning was cool. The entrances, the setup, all that stuff kind of made it more exciting than almost everything above this. A lot of people would say, what about Yokozuna versus Bret Hart, WrestleMania 9 or 10? But mostly WrestleMania 9 people bring up. But I would argue that, despite the match not being very good, I thought the salt into Bret Hart's eyes at the end, and I thought Hulk Hogan coming down and winning the belt then all of a sudden, while it's ridiculous, I still find it more exciting than all of the things that I mentioned above. So even though the match wasn't very good and it was pointless, really, in theory, it was all to set up Hogan and ending up being challenged and then winning almost immediately at the end. I just have to say that moment alone is more exciting than all the other matches above, despite that being a lackluster main event. Sgt Slaughter versus Hogan gets a lot of critique as one of the worst matches. But you know what? I thought that they had more of a classic 80s style wrestling match. There was a little bit of blood. You had the whole American vibe going on, and you had the Hogan vibe, the Hulkamania vibe going on. And because the crowd was so into it and so for Hogan and it was loud, it was somewhat exciting still, despite being a little bit, kind of outdone at that point. So I still wouldn't put that. I'd still think that that's more exciting than the other 5 matches I mentioned. A lot of people would bring up LT versus Bam Bigelow. LT could barely wrestle. He wasn't a wrestler. He was trained on the spot. Faced Bam Bigelow at WrestleMania 11, one of the worst WrestleManias of all time. Had some of the most hilarious audio malfunctions of all time at WrestleMania 11. The WWE Network has cleaned up a lot of that stuff, but I do have my original VHS tape from recording off of pay-per-view WrestleMania 11, and the botches are out of control, crazy funny. And one of the funniest moments of WrestleMania 11 is when Jerry the King Lawler, towards the end of the show, goes, McMahon, I've been pulling this plug out here throughout the show every time, and when I plug it back in, everything seems to work a lot better. And Vince McMahon just chuckles and goes, Jerry Lawler wreaking havoc with our audio system all night long. No, I'm serious, McMahon. Now I can hear you. And it's really funny. It's this little comment that Jerry Lawler makes. And after several audio malfunctions all night, and he just makes this under his breath comment I've been pulling this plug all night, and when I push it in here now, I feel like, whatever. And it's just it's this funny little thing. I don't know if he meant that to be whatever, but it was hilarious. Anyway, but the point is LT versus Bam Bigelow. LT versus Bam Bigelow. I didn't put it on the list because Bam Bigelow sold like a motherfucker in this thing, and they got Lawrence Taylor to somehow seem a little bit believable in a crazy sort of match. Now, it wasn't very good, but for the fact that LT wasn't a wrestler, and you know what I mean, it actually wasn't the worst match on the card. It might have been probably, when I go back to watch that WrestleMania, aside from Shawn Michaels and Diesel, if Shawn Michaels and Diesel had been the top match, I wouldn't even had that on the list. Bam and LT, though, yeah, that was a rocky one, but I don't think it was the top 5 worst WrestleMania match, amazingly. It was interesting, at least. That's the thing. And another honorable mention is Roman Reigns versus Triple H. I know that people are like, you already put Roman Reigns on the list twice. And I'm like, yeah, he kind of sucks. But Roman Reigns versus Triple H. But I didn't put it on there because I felt like this was the only arguable Roman Reigns WrestleMania moment where I could kind of see what they were trying to do. They were trying to get the kids into Reigns and get all the younger fans and the casual and the women. They did it for the women, the kids, and the casuals who liked Reigns. And there were a lot of them, even though there was a lot of us who hated Reigns and it was boring, kind of. I was cheering for Triple H. I'd already seen Triple H put over Cena once before in a pretty good match, and I was cheering for Triple H. Now I gotta know that Triple H is losing again to Roman. It was just kind of enraging to me. But there was a spear on Stephanie and some other little things like that. Plus, my sign was in the crowd as well. So I didn't put this one on the list. Roman Reigns versus Triple H. Also, King Kong Bundy versus Hogan. Sometimes people point to that at WrestleMania 2. But it did have that classic big guy wrestling drama, and it was in a cage. I don't like the match. It's probably number 6 or 7 on the list if we had a 6 or 7, because I just always found that match so boring to me. But, you know, the guys working were doing a pretty decent job. So that would have been on probably number 6, but it just made the cut. And number 1, I kind of just gave it away a minute ago, but number 1, the worst WrestleMania match of all time, in my opinion, is Roman Reigns versus Brock Lesnar. The worst WrestleMania main event match of all time, Roman Reigns versus Brock Lesnar. I gave 0 craps about this match at all. I was infuriated that I had to even watch it. I couldn't stand Roman Reigns, and I was sick of Brock Lesnar. I did not give a crap what they did in the ring. They even busted open Roman Reigns, and I couldn't have cared. They could have cut Roman Reigns' arm off, and I couldn't have cared. And to me, that shows you how disassociated and just ridiculous this main event even was. It wasn't exciting, it wasn't fun, and it wouldn't have been fun no matter what happened or what they did. Therefore, there was 0 chance this match would ever probably entertain me at all. They would have had to pull off a match better than Bret Hart and Stone Cold at Mania 13, better than all kinds of things, to actually get me to go, wow, that, you know what, I didn't care, but that match was good. Well, it wasn't good, and I didn't care, and the fans didn't care. Fans left, fans booed, and the match was crap as far as I'm concerned, and it would have been crap even if they'd had a decent match. It would have been crap, because I couldn't care about either one of these guys. One of the most boring years of wrestling on top of one of the most boring main events, waste of time that has ever happened at WrestleMania. Roman Reigns versus Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania, one of the worst ever. And I think that was WrestleMania 34, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong down below. Anyway, that's my list. I gave you my honorable mentions. There's sure a couple other ones probably, but what do you guys think? I got more lists coming that I want to talk about and matches I want to talk about. Recently, somebody asked me to make, somebody said on Twitter, make your top 8 WrestleMania matches. And I kind of had a tough time with that. I think I could make my top 10, 12, or 15 maybe, but 8 was a little bit of a rough one, but I did it anyway. So I'm going to talk about those 8, or maybe create 10 and do a video on that. And we'll talk about that in the next video. My name is Joe Cronin. Tonight is AEW Dynamite. I've got more news videos coming out today. Remember, if you have a cell phone, YouTube is shadow banning almost everybody right now. If you have a cell phone, you have to click on Joe Cronin Show. Then you have to click on View Channel to see that I'm live. It's not popping up in everybody's subscription boxes. It's only popping up in about 40% of you guys' subscription boxes. So if you guys want to see if I put out a new video, or you want to see if I'm live right now, make sure you click on Joe Cronin Show. Then you click on View Channel, not just videos, because it doesn't pop up there anymore. And it's not popping up in subscription boxes. So make sure you do all of that to make sure I'm not live and I haven't uploaded videos that you missed. Countless amount of people are been bummed out they missed videos and things. However, I will also put this up on Patreon as an alert. So if you're a patron, you'll get an email alert when I upload videos and when I go live. So make sure you guys go over to Patreon and become patrons. And remember, it's April 1st, so make sure to re-up on Patreon as well if you can, because, you know, obviously it's the first of the month. And with the Corona stuff going on, you know what I mean, we could definitely use the backup. So I want to thank some of the people who backed me up on Patreon. Six has become a $25 producer, and Tony Diesel has pledged 50. So thank you to Tony. And Tony has became a patron as well. Thank you, sir. But yes, please think about becoming a patron right now. No better time than right now to become a patron. We certainly could use the Patreon help now during this coronavirus issue, as we lost 82 patrons last night, which is the most loss of patrons I have seen ever. I've never seen more than 55 loss of patrons in a month. Overnight, we lost 80 patrons. So that tells me that there's either problems with cards or people are struggling with the Corona deal. So hopefully you guys can jump back on board or sign up if you haven't before to keep us going here and doing this. Going to need probably 30 to 50 of you to become $2 to $5 patrons. So if you want, sign up there. And if you're a $25 producer, then thank you very much for that. There's a note to self up from yesterday when I went on an insane rant. That's up on Patreon right now, and there's more coming as well. All right. Speaking of rants, this ramble is over. Leave comments down below with your worst Mania matches from the main event. Remember, these are main events. These are the main event matches, the worst main event matches of WrestleMania. There can only be 35 of them. And, yeah, so there you go. You know what? I just realized something. I totally forgot something. Ronda Rousey, Charlotte, and Becky Lynch. I completely forgot about that. I just looked at my list and realized last year's main event wasn't on my list to go through. How could I have forgotten that? Wow. You know what, guys? Girls, I'm going to bump that to number one. And I'm going to bump off, I guess The Miz and John Cena are going to get saved. Because I'll tell you what, Becky Lynch, Charlotte, and Ronda Rousey with that botch ending, I don't know, man. They had an okay thing going on before that, but that botch ending ruined everything. That was horrible. That match was terrible. That might be the worst main event of all time. I don't know. Well, anyway, I'm not going to change my list. I take it back. I gave you the list I gave you. What do you guys think about it? I can't believe I left that off. My God, where would you put it? I don't know. Well, I'll leave that for you guys to fight about in the comments down below. Wow, that definitely is one of the worst matches of all time. That probably is somewhere in the top 5 to top 6. I don't know where. I got to watch it again, to be honest. I watched it once, and that was about it. I guess maybe because it's the women and the first time ever, and, they sort of had some okay moments before the ending. I suppose it's better than some of the other matches that I listed in the top 5. Just the ending was so horrifically botched. I guess it's similar to Sid and Sid Justice and Hulk Hogan at WrestleMania 8. They had kind of a botchy ending and not a very good match, but the beginning was so exciting, and the Warrior coming out at the end was kind of fun, so I left that off the top 5 as well. I don't know. Where would you guys put it? I'll leave it in your hands. I'm Joe Cronin. Hit me up on Twitter at CorruptedPod, and I hope you guys become patrons on patreon.com/Joe Cronin Show or download the app on your phone. You get thousands of hours of content that you don't hear on YouTube. All my other shows. All right, guys, I'm out. Bye.